Let me pop them in. Here we go. I have a question for you to get started. As I said, this is going to be an interactive webinar, and I know how much you all learn from each other. So please do join in on the chat. That would be fantastic. So my first question is this. Do you work for an executive who struggles to delegate certain tasks, or who does not always have the time to teach? So let me know on the chat if that's something that you are encountering, and if so, you are in very, very good hands, because it's a common challenge that a lot of assistants have with their executives, and we are going to spend quite a chunk of time today looking at that. So let me know if it's something that that you are finding challenging. Yes, does not have time to teach. Absolutely. Yes, exclamation mark. Yeah, it's something that is very, very common for assistants. So I train a lot of assistants. I've been running Practically Perfect PA for well over a decade now, and this is certainly an issue that comes up time and time again. Many executives have, let's face it, they've received no training in what and how to delegate, and the lack of this critical skill can make them, I hate to say it, but really tough to work with. If your executive doesn't delegate, then you as the assistant might feel like they don't trust you, or that they don't appreciate the work that you can do. And worst of all, you can end up feeling like you're being held back and bossed around from task to task, instead of being allowed to gain confidence and grow in your career. Does that sound familiar? I'm sure it does. As I said, I've been training assistants for a really long time now, and it's something that comes up time and time again. And it's like I said, it's not necessarily the executive's fault. They don't receive any training on delegation. So it's one that I'm going to spend the next half an hour with, just talking it through with you and coming up with some reasons as to why that's an issue and what you can do to address it. So this is what we are going to cover. Okay, so we're going to cover why your executive doesn't delegate. And we've got 8 examples of why they don't delegate. Because one of the things I often say to assistants is, if there's a challenge, it's well worth looking at why, particularly when it's around a person like your executive, why they're acting like they do. So why your executive doesn't delegate, and then we're going to look at what you can do to encourage delegation. So let's have a look at some of your comments before we get started. Ashley has said, struggles to delegate and release tasks, has to have a hand in everything, but does not have the time. Yeah, absolutely. There's some chat around micromanagement. Yeah, absolutely. Someone said he does not even want to share his mailbox with me. That's, again, a really common one. So there's lots of reasons why your executive doesn't delegate. Most of them, as I said, rooted in personality, and understanding why they're not delegating is the first step in learning how to work with an executive who under-delegates. So as I said, there's 8 reasons, and these are the most common reasons why your executive won't delegate. We're going to go through them now, and I'm going to stop at each one, and then we can have a chat after each one to see how you feel about it, and if this is the one reason why your executive doesn't delegate. There's probably more than one, but if there's one, then that's great. Okay, I'm going to make this a bit bigger so you guys can see this, because there is some writing there. So hopefully you can see that slide okay. So the first reason is they think they can do it better and faster on their own. So this is the kind of perfectionist personality. And if anybody out there watching is a perfectionist themselves, this is probably something that you can relate to. So perfectionist personalities have a hard time delegating. They can only be confident that something is done right when they do it themselves. It pains them to see you doing a job in what they consider to be a less efficient or less competent way. So Even if they do give up responsibility for a task, these executives are then prone to micromanage. And they will keep watching over your shoulder because they're afraid you're going to do something wrong, and they will get blamed for it. So that's a big one. Who has come across that one before? So they think they can do it faster and better. Let me see if that sounds familiar to some of you. I know we've mentioned micromanaging already, but let me know if that's something that strikes a chord. Okay. So next one. Explanation can take longer than the task. So the thought process goes something like this. If I try to train this employee, it will take me an hour to go through the process and all of the variables, and then another hour correcting their work when they do it wrong. And I would be better off just taking 30 minutes out of my schedule to do the task myself. Okay, that's their thought process. Well, that's great, except that you'll all be stuck in this same situation next week, the week after, and every time a similar task comes up. So some personalities have a strong need to complete tasks at the earliest opportunity without realizing they need to offload their routine work to save time and energy in the long run, and actually work on things that, you know, are more kind of strategic for them. So I've given you two there. I'm going to pause and just see what you think. Do any of those make sense? Yep. So Julia said, yes, definitely. Joanna said 100% true. Hi from New Jersey. Welcome anybody who's just joined us. We're just making our way through 8 reasons why your executive doesn't want to delegate. And we're currently up to number 3. So number 3, they don't want to overburden you. Again, does that sound familiar? It's quite common, and it is more common for assistants. Executives can feel bad that they've got an assistant in the first place and don't want to burden their assistant and give them work that they feel is unnecessary, that they can just be doing themselves. So again, this is probably a nicer reason not to delegate. This one isn't that common, I don't think, but it is true. There are executives who feel like that, and it's human, it's understandable. Sometimes it's kinder for a manager to deal with an assignment rather than toss, say, like a hot potato to an already stressed out team or assistant. So they just do it themselves. They don't want to burden you with any more work if they already think that you're busy. But when it comes from a caring place, under delegating work robs you, the assistant, of valuable learning activities where you are then stretched and you can grow your skills and capabilities. So again, this might be coming from a nice place, but it's still not helping you develop and expand your career and your potential. Okay. Number 4, they've delegated before, but with bad results. And again, this one I think is quite common. Delegation doesn't always work out as intended, and most executives will have horror stories about a time something bad happened when they delegated an assignment, that the assignment was done badly, putting them in a difficult position and creating more work for the executive or other members of the team. Now, if that's your executive's experience, then it's not surprising that they are reluctant to delegate assignments, especially when it's complex projects or those that have a high level of risk. But what happens if, for example, your executive is away? What happens if not necessarily if they're away on a trip, but something unexpected happens and they have to step away from the office? This attitude may ensure that the current assignments get done well, or, you know, your executive picks out, you know, the person that they 100% trust, but it doesn't solve the very real problem of making sure there's always someone else ready to jump in and deal with anything important if there's an emergency. So there's my first 4 reasons. Which of those 4 sound true to you? Let us know on the chat if out of those 4 you've experienced any of those, or you think some are maybe easier to deal with than others. I'll just give you a minute on the chat just to have a look through and let me know what experience you've had of those 4 reasons. So Enola has said, I know this one, scared to burden you with responsibility. Jennifer has said there, my exec seems like he thinks I'm not able to do more than arrange meetings and travel. He does not see me as his partner. Jessica said 1 and 4 from this list are spot on. Yeah. Again, I think the 1 and 4 are absolutely very, very common. Anybody else, let us know in the chat, and I'll make sure to read some of them out. Let's not joke around when we say delegation is hard to learn. It absolutely is. I've had to learn how to do it. It's tough. So I feel for the assistants and I feel for the executives as well. So Eva said 3 and 4 from the list, 1 and 4. Yeah, these are all very common. Okay, let's move on to our second set of 4. And again, we'll take our time going through them. So you can tell me, again, on the chat, whether or not any of these ring true to you. Okay, so number 5, they don't know where to start with delegation. Another, as I said right at the beginning of the webinar, another problem is that many managers and executives are not taught how to delegate properly. And if they've never had to delegate before, then of course they're going to be anxious and fearful because they're unsure of the outcome. So if you're working with an executive who has never had an assistant before, if you're working with an executive who maybe had access to like a pool of administrators and now has a one-to-one assistant, that's a big change. There's lots of examples where executives don't know where to start with delegation. And again, this one isn't so bad to help with. So if that one is something that seems familiar to you, then I think some things we're going to talk about in a little bit should help. Number 6, they think they have to do everything. Many executives think that they have to perform every task that crosses their desk. It's what they're paid to do. Okay. So in this circumstance, I'm thinking more, maybe not a CEO of an organization, maybe more, directors of a department, or they're not quite at that C-suite level yet. They're that tier down. They feel like everything that passes their desk is their job. So it often happens when someone is freshly promoted to a leadership position, and a lot of new managers or executives may struggle for some time to realize that they're not paid to do the work, but to ensure that the work gets done. So there is a difference there. They also might be afraid that this is controversial. They might also be afraid, particularly if they're new in the role, that their assistant might upstage them or make them look inferior in their role. Let me know if anything like that sounds familiar, because it happens. It happens when you're not confident in yourself. So if that's something that seems familiar, then let us know on the chat and we can come back and talk about that one. Okay, I'll move on to number 7 and 8, and then we'll have a long pause and we can talk about this all in a bit more depth. So number 7, they don't trust your commitment to the job. Your executive might be worried that they will spend all their time delegating to you and teaching you all of the skills you need to do the role, and then within a short space of time you leave. So they might also question your motives and the quality of your work. And again, this can be common for executives who have worked with a number of assistants in a short space of time, who left because their executive didn't delegate. So it becomes a vicious circle. So again, this is something that is about personality. It really is, because, as I said, it's a vicious circle. If they're not delegating work or they're micromanaging, they're finding it really tough, assistants are going to leave. And then it causes this whole other issue that they're worried that they can't find an assistant who will commit to the job. So number 7 is, that's an unfortunate one. And again, we can come back and talk about that one. Let's have a look at the last one. and then we'll spend longer looking at all 4. So the last reason is that they wouldn't know what to do if they delegated. And we don't often talk about this as assistants. It's that your executive wouldn't know what to do with themselves if they did delegate their work. And for me, emails is the absolute key example of this. So a lot of employees think that answering and writing emails all day is work. I am here to tell you that that is not work. That's answering emails. If your executive delegates the management of their emails to you, what work have they got left to do? If they've already spent, what are they going to do with their time if all they do is live in their inbox? So the same could be said for scheduling and attending meetings. How does your executive drive the business forward when they delegate all of those key activities that they spend so much of their time doing to you? So it's like, I often think of it, particularly with emails, it's like taking their comfort blanket off of them. If you've got an executive who spends so much time in their emails, you take that away from them, it really leaves them feeling quite exposed. So let me know what you think. That was quite a rushed, kind of quick pace through 8 potential reasons why your executive doesn't delegate. So let's have a look on the chat what you think of those last 4. Sophia said, I've experienced all of them in different scenarios. Hi there, we've got some hellos. Hello there from Trinidad and Tobago. Fantastic. Hello from Zurich. So Inga said, I think one of the major factors is trust. If your boss does not have the confidence and ability to trust, you can try as hard as you want. Absolutely. Eva said, I absolutely relate to number 6 and 7. Jessica said, 6 is very much my executive, but more so because he feels like he's Superman and he can do it all. Yeah, absolutely. These are all really common. Again, let us know on the chat which ones you think are most relevant to you, because absolutely, they all sound very familiar. What else have we got? Let us know. So 1 and 4. Any more from this second group? They think they have to do everything. Absolutely. It's like I said, it's that they think they have to do everything to justify their salary, to look busy, to feel important. These are all things that are so personal that it's hard to break them down. And I think, as I said at the beginning of the webinar, just taking that time, if you work for an executive who doesn't delegate, it's worth taking that time to think why they don't, before we look at the reasons to go, or before we look at the course of action to take. It's worth just giving yourself a little bit of time to think about maybe why they don't. If they've said anything to you before, maybe about a previous experience, or you've got some feedback from some colleagues, then, it's interesting just to have a think about it. Okay, so as I said, if the first step is to look at why your executive doesn't delegate, I want to take some time to look at what assistants can do to work with an executive who doesn't want to delegate, and how we can work and thrive in those restrictions, along with moving into what we like to call a strategic business partner role. So Ingo, just want to read this one. Ingo said, there are some who do. I did work for 2 who were totally able and let me also work on content rather than just admin. Yeah, I think, again, we'll come on to this, but it's also, as I said, it's thriving in the restrictions of somebody who doesn't delegate. So we'll come back to that for sure. Okay. I'm going to make myself a bit bigger so you can see me a little bit more. No, that's too big. That's better. Okay. So, as I said, find out why your executive doesn't delegate. That's the first step on this journey. Find out why they don't delegate. And this is my first suggestion. So, it's called the multiple choice strategy. And this is something that a lot of assistants will have experience in their role. And you've probably done this in other areas before, but it's worth stepping it up a notch when it comes to working with an executive who doesn't delegate. So what is the multiple choice strategy? Okay. So instead of simply asking your executive, how can I help? What's on your plate today? What's going on? You need to get really specific with what you're asking them and what your offer is. So for instance, I think I've got this written down. Let's have a quick look. Yeah. So for instance, instead of saying something like, how can I help you? Say something like this. Okay. Say, for example, your executive's name is Steve. So you'd go into the meeting and you would say, Steve, I know we've got a lot to prepare for next week's presentation or meeting. I'd be happy to prepare the PowerPoint slides or draft their briefing memo. Which would you like me to start with? So you've got two examples there. You're not going in and giving them a general question of how can I help, because the immediate answer for somebody who is a delegate is, no, it's fine. I've got it. It's fine. I can deal with it. But if you go in there and you ask them to let you move, well, actually, let's take a step back. What you've done there is you've gone in and told them that you know what is happening in their world and that they've got this thing coming up, say, for example, a meeting. Then you've given them two choices to let you know, to let you help. And it's really hard to say no to that. It's really hard because it's so specific. Does that make sense? Let me know in the chat if that's making sense to you. I'll give you another example while I'm waiting to get your feedback. So say, for example, your executive's name is Jane. Jane, I know we've got a lot to prepare for next week's meeting. I'd be happy to draft an agenda or prepare a briefing note in advance. Which would you like me to start first? Okay, I'm going to wait a second and let me know what you think on that one. Jennifer, yes, love it. Thank you. I find this really helpful. And as I said, somebody who also struggles to delegate, who's mostly will come back and say, no, it's fine, I'll do it. Or, yeah, no, I've got that, put my hand up and happy to take the task. If somebody's saying this to me, first of all, it makes me feel really confident that we know what's coming up next week. And it doesn't give me much choice to kind of edge out of it and just say, I'll do it. It's really proactive, and I really like that method. So I'd absolutely 100% suggest that when you are going into your team meetings or you're going into your one-on-one meetings with your executive, use that multiple choice strategy. It means that what you're doing is, it means that you're going to have to prepare a little bit in advance, have a look through their diary, know what's coming up, and then when you do go into your one-to-one meeting, have before you do, figure out what you're going to tell them that you want to do. So the two things that you're going to feel confident and that you know you're going to deliver. Okay. So I'm going to just sum up on that point. So phrasing your offer as a multiple choice makes it much harder for your executive to say no. If it's clear that there's a lot to be done and you demonstrate that you're ready and willing to take on specific tasks, they're more likely to give you the go-ahead. This approach also shows that you're in the loop, that you have a sense of what's going on around you, and you're aware of the challenges ahead. And I've just summarized that in a slide there. So it's harder for them to say no, and it demonstrates that you are in the loop. Now, we could spend a whole another hour on talking about how you make sure that you're in the loop. And I actually, there is a YouTube video on the Practically Perfect PA YouTube channel that goes into that in a lot of detail. So if you struggle to stay in the loop with your executive, as I said, that's a whole other issue, but very much tied to delegation, then please do go and have a look at that video as well. I'm just going to take a sip of water and I'm just going to look at some of the comments. Laura, it's like parenting. I'm not saying no to that, Laura. Julie said, great strategy and open-ended questions, so they're less likely to say no. Fantastic. Jessica said it helps them not feel like they have to think about it, which could take more time. It adds to their list of to-dos. Absolutely. What I would also say, for a lot of executives, they have what's called decision fatigue. They're making decisions all day and all night. and actually taking some of those decisions away from them is also something that really adds value for assistants. So giving them the two choices, they just have to come up with one choice and off you go. So it also takes away decision making as well. Ingrid said, may I suggest the magic formula? I'll pop this one on so everyone can see it. Who, what, where, why, and how. The answers to these questions in one sentence will show your executive that you have looked at the matter in depth and thought about potential solutions already. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I'll leave that up for a second so people can look at that one and write that down if they want. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Whoop. Here we go. My next one is one that I think is really great advice for assistants at all time, but also very much so if you work with an executive who struggles to delegate. Prove you know what you are doing. And as I've put there as well, showcase your smarts. So if your executive is a perfectionist, they're risk adverse, or they're worried the task will take longer to explain than complete, think in advance about how you'll actually help with those 2 or 3 specific tasks and go to your executive with a plan of action. Again, this might seem like overkill, but it's really not. And the thing I would also say is this is now. So this is when your executive, you're in the here and now and your executive isn't delegating to you. The more you do this, it will ease off. The more they trust you, the more that they start to realize that you're completely capable of doing it, it will ease off. And what I would also say is that I know that you're an excellent assistant. You should know that you're an excellent assistant and that you've been hired in the role because you can do all of the things that are asked of you. This isn't a problem with you, but if you want to be proactive and help solve it, then you are going to have to take that initiative, and it will take you longer to kind of teach them and explain it to them than maybe other assistants who work with executives who are happy to delegate or are better at delegating. So that's well worth saying. This isn't a problem with you. But if you know the organisation is good, if you know that you can, you want to stay there and it's worth the effort, then please do use this method because it does work. It just takes time. So what I would say is when I'm saying prove you know what you're doing. So I want to give you an example. When you offer to let's go back to the example that we just used. When you offer to put the agenda together for the meeting, have a sketch in your hand of what you think the agenda should look like, or give your executive your preliminary thoughts on what, again, the other example we used, what the briefing memo should include. So do that pre-work. By doing some of the initial work, you'll give them a sense of your thought process and demonstrate your smarts, and also that you've got good judgment. So both of which should go a long way in helping them to start offloading more meaningful and challenging tasks for you. So going back to the analogy we were speaking about earlier, baby steps, and just start to really demonstrate what you can do. And this leads nicely into my next point. Take the initiative and be proactive. So really start to sell the benefits of them delegating. What do I mean by that? Well, it's well worth remembering that it's your executive's job, and I can't stress this enough, it is your executive's job to ensure you develop in your role. And without meaningful tasks, that's never going to happen. So this in itself can feel like another task that busy and stressed out executives have to add to their already extensive to-do list. And then that becomes a vicious circle. And again, let me know in the chat if this sounds familiar. They're so busy, they're so stressed out that they find it really difficult to offer career development or mentoring. But then they get so stressed out about it, they get a bit anxious about it, and they get, a bit frustrated that people are coming to them. So if that sounds familiar, it's a vicious circle, because if they delegated more work, they'd have the time to develop their staff. So yeah, they're super busy because they don't delegate, but don't delegate because it feels like more work. Yeah, It's a horrible position to be in if you think about it. So your executive probably isn't going to change unless you help them. So what I would absolutely say, and off the back of this session, this is a great time to start. Don't play a waiting game. They're not going to change. So take the initiative and explain how your boss would almost be doing you a favor by delegating to you. So, for example, could you explain to them how delegating this type of task would really help you improve your worth in the company? It would open you up to opportunities, really sell them the benefits from a career development perspective, because then that's taken that task off of their shoulders. It's like, oh, okay, right, she wants to develop her career. I don't have to do it for her or him. Let me know again in the chat if that makes sense. Because I just want you guys to kind of get your head around that one. You want to be selling the benefits of delegating to them from a career development perspective. So let me know in the chat if that makes sense. So as I said, sell the benefits, and bosses who are reluctant to delegate for fear of swamping you with work, that's one we were talking about earlier, they are obviously completely missing the point. Good employees want to help their bosses because, let's face it, you're all in it together and you all want to move the business forward. So let me know if that makes sense, because I think that's something that maybe when it comes to delegation we don't talk about very much, but it should help you to sell the benefits. Yeah, it's absolutely. I will. I'll come back to all of that, Wambu, in a minute once we've finished the presentation. But yeah, all of the slides and this presentation will be available afterwards. So Lydia said, oftentimes we look at career development as a conference to attend or new software to learn, whereas an executive delegating loading their work to the EA and ensuring it's done correctly is developing the EA's career. Yes, absolutely, 100%. I couldn't agree more. I'm going to pop that on there so everybody can see it. It doesn't take much, and actually offering stretch challenges and tasks and most assistants really relish that. So absolutely couldn't agree with you more there. So my last one is this. Once you've been doing all of this work and you're slowly starting to see them delegate things to you, reassure and report back. So if it looks like your executive is worried about your competencies, suggest strategies that will reassure them of your ability to deliver a good outcome. So for instance, you could agree to report on progress regularly or to deliver the assignment ahead of schedule, so there's time for the executive to get involved and course correct if necessary. That's always a really good one. If your executive is a bit of a control freak, then, as I said, a slow and steady approach is the best way to wean them off this habit. Because let's face it, this is a habit. It really is. And yes, it's born out of some of the reasons that we suggested earlier, but it is a habit. And actually, sometimes when there is that realization that it's not a healthy habit, there might be more of a tendency for your executive to relent a little bit, particularly if it's some of the issues we were talking about earlier, like they've had a bad experience or they don't want to overburden you with work. Then again, once you start to break that habit, they'll start to realize actually how helpful it is that they don't have to do all of those tasks. So lastly, once you do get your executives to start delegating, you need to hold them to account. As we all know, with habits and forming new habits and breaking old habits, it's all about being held to account and not backslide into their bad habits. So the best way to do this is to ensure you have regular one-to-one meetings to go through your workload as well as theirs. And at the end of, say, each quarter, have another meeting to go through your goals and objectives and ensure that all of their tasks and goals are detailed out so that you can both see them, that you're both on the same page, and that this all goes towards your appraisal as well. Okay, so that was a very whistle-stop tour through making or encouraging your executive to delegate. I'm going to just close this one off. So Laura's asked, I've got a couple of questions before I go on to the next stage of the webinar. Laura's asked, Do you have a one-on-one form to craft this discussion with your executive? Yes, Laura, we do. If you go into Practically Perfect PA and you go into our resources section, there is a one-to-one template that's available for free on Practically Perfect PA. And that gives you structure around your one-to-one meetings. If you go onto Practically Perfect PA and type in one-to-one meetings, then there is absolutely tons of stuff on how you frame conversations with your executives around one-to-ones. So I hope that helps. Okay, no, my pleasure, Laura, thank you. Okay, so why don't you start to put in any questions you have for me? Happy to answer them. Let me know, first of all, what from that presentation you're going to go and try. I think that would be really helpful to know which ones that have resonated with you and which ones maybe not so much, which ones are difficult maybe for you. I'd also like to know if you're concerned that none of that will help your executive delegate work to you. And it's more than that, it goes deeper than that. And I will try to answer those questions as well. If there's any specifics, let me know and I will try and help. So before I do that, I want to talk to you a little bit more about working as a strategic business partner, which is something that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. This session, encouraging your executive to delegate, actually is part of our wider course at Practically Perfect PA called the Strategic Business Partner Program. It's a really in-depth course. It's 12 modules and it's my favorite course. It's really our flagship course on Practically Perfect PA. And I'm going to play a video for you, which is about 4 minutes long, which tells you about the course. And then we've got a really good discount for you that you can use if you want to purchase the course. And then I will be back answering any questions. We've got about 20 minutes left. So I think if you can get your questions into me, then I will work my way through them after this video. So enjoy, and I'll be back in about 4 minutes. The Strategic Business Partner Program is a 12-module program taken online and on demand that will teach assistants step-by-step how to create a strong partnership with their executives. Since 2018, over 10,000 assistants from across the globe have attended an online event or completed our training courses. Our events and training are popular because we focus on helping every assistant add more value and consistently contribute to the organisation's bottom line and get more out of their careers. As the head coach of the Strategic Business Partner Program, I want to help you to do one of two things. Start building the type of relationship you want with your current executive to genuinely work in partnership and sync together. And I want you to take your current role to new heights. So what is the Strategic Business Partner Program? The Strategic Business Partner Program is an online course that will show you step by step how to build a strategic business partnership with your executive, craft your role, future-proof your career, and ensure that you are not left behind as the assistant role continues to evolve. Throughout the 12 modules, you will learn timeless and proven strategies, techniques, and skills. Most importantly, you will learn how to align your current skills with the business and strategic objectives of your executive. All course materials, including videos, slides, PDFs, templates, and additional resources, are in our online learning portal. The training materials are yours forever. And the best thing is that you can start today, as all of the modules are on demand. As soon as you start the course, you'll begin to see precisely what your role should look like, how to align your job description to the work that you do. You will be able to create goals for your career to start to work with more purpose. By the end of the first module, you should start to see the benefits of taking the Strategic Business Partner Program. Don't take my word for it. Hear from our previous students. Within 3 weeks of starting the Strategic Business Partner online course, not only have I noticed a difference in the way we interact, but my boss has been very complimentary, and we are on our way to a great working relationship. I feel revitalized, and that is just from implementing a few pointers from the course. So let's break the course down. This is what you will learn. Module 1 will look at what it means to be a strategic business partner. We will then look at how to craft your own strategic business partner role. Every module helps you take control of your career. As a former assistant, I know that we often wait for others to offer support and advice, and all too often that support never comes. So we have decided on the course to help you be more proactive in the development of your career, because after all, it is your career. In Module 3, we look at what supervisory support you need to become a strategic business partner. In Module 4, we get stuck into the skills you will need to take your career to the next level as we develop you into a master communicator. Module 5, 6 and 7 looks at cementing relationships, impacting your role and networking and personal branding. Module 8 is really at the heart of the course as we develop your understanding of strategy and improve your strategic thinking. In Module 9, we look again at what it means to be a strategic business partner, building on all of the things you have learned so far. As we head into the last section of the course, we start to look ahead to make sure you keep control of your career by looking at setting boundaries, avoiding burnout, cementing the mindset of a successful strategic business partner, and finally, we'll help you to future-proof your brand new high-impact role as the strategic business partner. There is no risk. If you are unsure about your purchase, contact us within the first 30 days and we will refund your money with no questions asked. Here are just a few features that our students absolutely love. Our free downloadable templates and cheat sheets, and the thorough lessons that are there, which are designed specifically with assistance in mind. The course is completely flexible, learn from anywhere at any time, completely on your own schedule. Lifetime unlimited access to the course, it's available as long as the course is available. Actionable and practical advice that you can implement today and every day, and we have real life interviews and examples with high performing assistants. Enroll today and you will really start to notice that you are thriving in the role and making a difference every day. We cannot wait for you to join us.